Hey y'all,
We're
welcome
live.
back to the Spiral Comics de la Muerte. Me and Ronnie Gunner. Ogre, you out there somewhere too? We made it to the end. I guess before we get
And we
started,
missed you.
let's introduce ourselves. I'm Jason Alexander, Fallbreaker Studios. Over here we got Crimson Owl Comics, Ronnie Gunter. Man, let's talk about the conclusion. Like, this is like the whole sandwich of the end of this book, starting at chapter 17. So I'll let you give the first couple of thoughts on the overview. What do you think?
Just the overview of the book, just amazing from the start to the finish. He literally took the time to cater this and to raise it into a beautiful masterpiece, not just in the writing, but in the artwork, to make sure that every story was like a story that could stand on its own, even if it wasn't in the same book. And to
Yep.
make sure that he literally had the suspense and the horror factor at every single story that made you like, I want to see more. Give me more, please.
100%. Just before we even like get into the particulars of it, just like you were saying, this was I love everything about this book. It ended as strong as it began. Everything is like perfect. It is sensibly different in a non-sensibly world. It's so consistent. It was almost like a serial. Like, the whole series was like a serial because, like you said, each chapter stood on its own, but it told the complete story. And I gotta say, once again, the story did not end in any way how I thought that it could have ended, even after the past few weeks of going over this stuff. Like, this was still had more wrinkles, but man, it was a satisfying book. You got everything out of it that you could have asked for. It did not peter out one bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, it's what was interesting about these chapters is they had the most supernatural occurrences, but all the tension and all the drama was human on human, man. It was just like,
Yeah.
this was the world after. Like, sometimes people just survive the end of the world and they have to just get along. And that's exactly what happened. Like, it was an escape story. Like, this was the escape. But
Yeah.
you know, I guess I'll just start at chapter 17. Yeah. Like, so it's called Escape, and it's basically Kairi, her brother Suichi, and the news lady are working to escape because they know that Kairi knows her brother is turning into a snail, but she also remembers that getting out of the row house is what saved her family previously. So she's committed to like getting her brother and Suichi and whoever else is with them away. But obviously, it's never that easy in the world of the death spiral. So they're trying to get out. They try to find a pathway to escape. And, you know, obviously her brother is like transforming, so that slows them down. And also, there's just no way to get out. And so as they're trying to move past the town, they notice like people working on these spiral houses individually, extending them, trying to make room for everybody. But as you know, like nothing is that simple, because of course when they work, they create whirlwinds, because that's just, this town is cursed. Like, I've never seen a curse captured so perfectly since, like, you know, and I haven't even seen this movie, but I always assume like if voodoo is like the scariest things of voodoo are the things that I've seen from like Serpent and the Rainbow, like that like capture that real raw side of it, you know. But this captures like, this is what a cursed town would look like. It would be people still trying to do normal things and even trying to help, but this curse consumes them. And so it's like, just talking creates whirlwinds. And You know, them trying
And
to escape this town, they're lost. They can't get out because everything is all
Mhm.
screwy.
Yeah. And the thing is not just affecting like the people that live there, it's actually affecting the environment, like the trees,
Yeah,
the grass and everything. It's like, you know, it literally is taking effect and literally taking this town and putting it in like a demented like Alice in Wonderland episode where everything is
sure.
like, you know, crazy, twisted, and it seems like something that you would only see in like a nightmare or some children's book in a twisted way, you know?
Yeah, because it's not that same horror element doesn't really exist in this
Hmm.
chapter as it did in a lot of the other chapters. This is like this is full story. Like that's why like if you haven't read the book, like that's why like we're not really showing like the artwork is still beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but like these are just panels of them like walking on a path, and
Yeah.
it's building tension. But at this
And
point, like oh
just
yeah,
like the grass, you know, right there is like, let me see if I can zoom in. Like literally you see the grass twirling, you see these trees literally spiraling out, and just everything around the whole town is being affected to the point
sure,
it's like no one really knows what's going on. And like the destruction of the town, like Jason was saying, at this point, going up further, you could see that the houses are being built around and facing towards the pond that has had a
right,
spiral ever since the whole curse started.
right,
So,
yeah.
you know, it's crazy, and
It's
it, it makes you wonder how they're going to escape.
it's like the whole town is literally like circling the drain at this point, and they're
Hmm.
going against the current to try to escape. But because reality is collapsing in on itself, they can't move, and so
Yeah.
they run into people ahead of them that left
Hmm.
following them,
Yeah.
and these guys are a lot less than savory. You know, like
Hmm.
they have
Yeah.
a
We're
guy
to the
that's no. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Like it's like, yeah, there's to the point where, you know, the younger brother is pretty much turning into a snail, and they're realizing that, hey, the spiral is literally making us not escape this town, where we're just going in a circle, to the point
Yeah.
where this like group of like, I guess, military or whatever they are, I think they're military, is
Yeah.
like, we literally saw you going into the mountain, and we literally followed after you, to the point where like, okay, we're going to work together as a team now. But then you find out later on that they also had an agenda, which would be to eat the brother that was turning into a snail.
Right. Yeah, because they were traveling with a guy that was turning into a snail, and
Yeah.
they were just waiting on him to turn so they could eat him.
Yeah, they were hungry.
And they, it was so twisted, man. Like to watch his eyes like pop out of his head when the guy
Yeah.
turned into a snail. Like, how do you accomplish this in still pictures? Is just a testament to Junji Ito's artwork. Like over
You would have,
5 panels, he turned.
yeah,
Yeah, I will. Over 5 panels, he turns this guy into from a human into a snail. But like,
really good transformation that he did.
yeah, look at that. Like,
And just and for it being black and white, he did such a great job as an artist aspect, not just like showing the eyes popping out of the socket, but he gave a lot of detail in that shell of
yeah,
snail shells. You know,
yeah,
he yeah, it was really good, because he could have just made the design and just throw like, you know, gray tones on it, but he actually gave it texture and made it
yeah,
look like what a real snail shell would look like.
yeah, yeah. In black and white, it's just
Yeah.
like the attention to detail is just like one of the things that makes this book as great as it is. Like,
Hmm.
Escargot. Yep. So, and that's exactly like, look at this panel. That's exactly what these guys are thinking. Like, look at this. That's straight hunger over a were snail. And so, like, now they're deciding to eat this guy raw, just out in the middle of nowhere. Like, they're not even going to cook him. So, this guy, like, literally, I thought that he was being eaten by the snail. I'm like, oh, the snail is like taking reality back. But he literally fed himself on this snail and was so obsessed with the idea of eating this snail raw and like climbing in this spiral that he's just putting his whole body in there inch by inch. And it's just like climbing in here and eating this whole snail. And these guys are getting mad that he's doing it because they want to eat it too. Yeah. So, you know, Kairi and Shuichi.
And, you know, like me and Jason was talking about in the beginning, like you actually at one point where the guy is like crawling through the shell body. And was it this chapter or the next chapter?
It's the next chapter, yeah.
Yeah, I'll save that because that was a really good, you know, idea from an artist's perspective to show what it looks like inside of a snail shell. Yeah. So yeah, we'll wait that. But yeah, this chapter was just, you know, it was simple, but it really showed them that, hey, you know, you're stuck now. And if you had an idea to leave, you should have done it weeks ago because
this
now
is very hopeless. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically like, you know, there's a barrier and I'm not letting you to escape it. Before, you know, people were able to enter in, but now no one could come in or leave out.
Like this, look at this page. You got like, look at this page. Like this page is like so bananas. Like,
yeah,
it's almost like these men are like they keep leaving them behind, but they keep showing up in front of them. It's no, it's almost like these guys are like the representation of the spiral for them. It's like you can try to escape,
yeah,
but if the spiral can't escape itself, then you can't escape the spiral. They're kind of like the Grim Reaper, like, because they're so,
yeah, pretty much.
You know, it's like they eventually just turned on, you know, they turned on the guy that was with them, and they know that something's up with Kairi's brother. They know, like, they want to see his backpack because they know it's not a backpack, and it's like they're craving more snail meat.
Yeah, because that's the only food source that's in the town at this point. That, you know, all the crops and everything else is completely gone, and the only thing you have to eat is what these people are turning into.
Right.
But as we saw in the last chapter, if you eat them, you have a possibility turning to the exact same thing you eat. So
it's all the spiral is like, because the people in the row houses are protected, the spiral's attention is all on these people. And it's like one side is obsessed with escape and one side is obsessed with eating. So it's like, and they're tangled in this chapter, and they're trying to like get close to the brother, and they're trying to protect him and just say that his shell is a backpack. And then y'all, her brother's eyes popped out, and they had to hide them before these guys saw it. And so they just like grossly push his snail eyes back in his head, but it's too late at that point. Like it's the same thing as the other guy. Like the transformation is on. Like, so he slides off Shuichi's back, and then they run.
Which the snail brother was actually climbing down.
You don't. You don't.
No.
We're not offering those applications. You got to find the application on your own.
But literally, the brother at one point he was sliding down like a rock hill that was leading to water. So we don't know what happened to him at this
No.
point. And actually, I did find the scene because it is actually in this part of the book where the guy actually talks about being inside the shell and just having like a view of it. So let me see if I could bring that up here
Yeah.
because it's actually a really good.
It's a pretty cool picture. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, it was just really, really nice because like I don't know if you could see where my cursor is, but just seeing like the spiral effect that's
Yeah. Look
literally
at that.
inside the shell.
Yeah. That's what he was like seeing while he was eating
Yeah,
this. And it's
like he was literally trying to go inside the shell just to reach to his friend that had or his soldier friend or whatever he was to him to eat him, and he talks about it. It's like that magical space that made me feel like my body was becoming a spiral. Just thinking about it makes me feel like I'm going to. And right there his body literally spirals out and everyone else does too, but it's just, in the
it's so
beginning.
creepy. Like, it's
Yeah,
so creepy.
like
Like,
he even talks like he even talks about
whoa.
like he even talks about how his friend tastes is like the sensation of being inside his shell, chewing on the soft parts of his face, fitting your whole body inside those wet, wonderful curves.
Ooh. That
I'm
is
like,
so gross.
right? It's like,
Yeah, like he worked himself into a spiral frenzy, and
yeah,
like they all did. It was like they couldn't contain themselves. Whoa,
hmm
it's so gross. And it's like everything is spirals. Like the further they get out, there's nothing on any page that isn't
yeah,
spirals. And again, like we've said through this whole book, it's so well done because even the smallest panels have so much detail in them with these
hmm
spirals. Like it really does look like a weird wonderland. Like
yeah.
it's like the spiral has no people and no row houses to affect, so it just extends itself to affect any and everything it can get to.
And effects on your emotions depending on it. Like these
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
they fell in love with the spiral. And since they fell in love with it, just like in the beginning of the book with the father, he literally started turning into a spiral. If
Yeah.
you're a person that just wants to give up and not keep on moving and just let the spiral take its course, you pretty much become a snail at that point. You know,
Yep.
like depending on how you feel and how it affects you emotionally, it will turn you into whatever it desires it for you to be. So yeah.
It makes me wonder, like, if the people that learned how to fly, the people that learned how to ride the spirals, is that like the opposite? Like, if you don't embrace it, you have to become food for the people that do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
pretty
Like,
much.
because like yes, those people who rode the spirals aren't mentioned much, but it's like this is like these chapters are like this is like an evolution, like because
Hmm.
it's yes, you're still in Kurozu Cho and it's still cursed, but this is all very very different than
Yeah.
the beginning of the book, and it's like that chapter ends and the next chapter begins. No, before we do that, any final thoughts on that chapter, Ronnie? I'm sorry.
With that chapter, I really liked it, especially towards the end, because you had a lot of emotion that was going on in there with, the sister literally trying to make sure that her little brother wasn't going to basically become food, and then
Sure.
basically seeing how this like eating the snail literally had an effect on people where it literally twisted him inside. And yeah, it wasn't like one of the greatest chapters, but overall it was just a nice chapter to show at this point that everything is destroyed,
Right.
and it's just like we need to find a way to get out of here now. And
Right.
yeah, it was a short chapter, but it was really good.
Yeah, it's funny like how like this entire book has been built on these like super strong standalone chapters,
Hmm.
and that chapter was super strong. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but these last chapters tell the story of one chapter in comparison to the rest of the book. So
Yeah.
you have to digest them as a unit this time. But that was a very strong way, as usual in this book. Like
Hmm.
this, like we broke the book up perfectly because this is the beginning of the end. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these chapters are wrapping up this story. As hard as it is to believe, like, but this story has a clear destination now. So
Hmm.
it's just, will they escape, and what does that look like? That's the trail we're on now.
Yeah.
So chapter 18 starts. I'll let you kick off chapter
Yeah.
18.
Chapter 18, The Labyrinth. Like, I just got to share the screen here just for the fact is that this scene, I could just imagine drawing it as an artist and be like, wow, that is a lot of work.
Yeah, because
Like literally look at that. That's the whole town now. Literally all the houses that are like spiraling together to create one unit. And it's not like he just made a bunch of squiggly lines. You could tell that he actually took the time to make
each of
sure
these
that
row
it
houses
had
are different.
detail in it.
Yep. And if
Hmm.
you look at,
Just
there's a picture in the chapter 17 that we just covered. Each of these dark row houses that you can see in the the big panel up top, each of those
yeah.
are the only images in another picture, and they're in the exact same places. He used this image and filled it in
Hmm.
with hundreds of houses. So everybody who
With
was
different texture.
with different texture.
Yeah.
So basically, everybody who was working on row houses and said there would be enough room for everybody,
Hmm.
all extended their row houses, but all their extended row houses ended up completing this giant spiral completely independent of
Patrick,
each other.
there's 20 chapters.
20 chapters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's just like this scene, this chapter I just really liked because of just the detail that he put into it as an artist with like the swirling of the houses and just pretty much at this point you're like, okay, we were gone and now the whole town was destroyed by like these people that were born with tornado powers,
right.
and in such a short little time people were able to come together and rebuild the city after
Yeah.
it was just destroyed like in a couple hours or even a couple days period. And you're just wondering, it's like at this point they're walking through the whole town and they just hear people talking,
Right.
and when you hear the people talking, what do you see? You basically see like how before and when the earlier chapters, people just became so intertwined together. It's kind of like the human centipede, like
Yeah,
you said, you know?
exactly. Just like pasta noodles, pasta ramen, people spiral noodles. That's what's happening. Like
Yeah.
it's just in this. How do you make a black and white image look like wet? Like, but he nailed like Junji Ito's attention to detail
Hmm.
is it's it's art. Every page is art. Like
And I just got to show the scene because this scene is like, this is a scene that really shows like the horror aspect to it. And it's just really good. Look at
yeah, look
that.
at that.
Look at the
Holland
faces.
spiral, like gross,
Yeah.
like people.
And like going up before, you literally see like these people like spiral out. Some of them are dead and some of them are alive still. And yeah, it's just especially one part where is it where the people are talking and you literally see all these heads like literally intertwined together. It kind of reminded me of like, you know, because it's Christmas in July, and I was watching the movie because I hadn't seen the movie in a long time. Scrooge with Bill Murray, where he opens up the coat to the Christmas of yet to come, and you have like those souls in the chest, and it kind of remind me of that. I'm like, that's cool. So yeah, but yeah,
So
just this part was like this chapter was really on the horror factor
yeah.
and the gross factor.
So like I'm looking at the book now, like as we like get towards these ending chapters, like I won't go overboard into my whole overview thing, but
Mm-hmm.
this book is written really well and the artwork is really well, but some of the like the glue in that is Junji Ito's sound effects. They
Yes.
always work, and they always like once you like look at them and you see them, because it's usually you usually see them like a panel or two ahead because it's
Mm-hmm.
building tension, right? But then when you see what's making the sound and you go back and look at those panels, you're like, oh, that is exactly what it would sound like, even though you don't hear it. Like, man,
Yeah.
this is a textbook. That is very gross.
Oh yeah.
That's hot.
But
No.
the news reporter, she got captured inside the house when people
Yeah.
were like trying to join and intertwine with each other again. And their whole purpose is that, like the younger brother said in the other book, is like, they're all facing the pond. And at this point, the pond is dried up and it leads down to basically an underground tunnel. And that's where we come into the next chapter of the completion, because we're literally seeing what was the whole purpose of the curse in the first place. So they're literally going down the stairwell case that was hidden inside of the pond all this time.
All right. All right. Like, that's what you want to draw comic books like. Like,
mm-hmm.
It's just so strong, man. Like, it's
just not the story in this part, but just the the idea of how he wanted like to tell the story in each panel shot. It's like, okay, I want the spiral at this part to be bigger, and I want like the detail with this and that. And it's just, it made me think, it's like, okay, with this whole pond, no one decide to like, hey, I see like a tunnel down there, let me go down there and check it out.
He is so good at this. He's so good at it. Like,
yeah,
just like this chapter is an art. This is an art chapter. Like the way he keeps the spiral consistent as you look down the alleys where the row houses are. He still establishes that something is chasing them until they get to this giant empty well where Dragonfly Pond was, and all these ancient ruined staircases. Like, as this chapter goes on, it's like Kairi is committed to seeing this through to the end, and Suichi is like even to the point of knowing that it's an ancient curse. Like, he's always had an idea. Like, it's almost like it's revealing itself to him, and it's very ominous. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You want to talk about like establishing mood, and it's like Suichi and Kairi have always been like girlfriend and boyfriend in this book, but they've never really been affectionate to each other physically. And it's like, this is like the first panel where you see, Suichi hold Kairi's hand and say, nope, we're doing this. Like, we've done this far, because they lost a news lady. They've lost her brother.
Yeah.
I have to believe at some level, like you can't believe that you're going to come out of this tunnel. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. This is just the end. And so
Yeah, it's just crazy. And at one point, when they're going down the tunnel, one of the like the spiral people literally attacks the boyfriend, and you see him falling down. And it's like, okay, is he dead? And she falls down too. But what happens? What breaks their fall? I just got a screen share because it's just so good. Like,
Yo,
man,
let me tell you what Junji Ito does. He does this. He might do it better than your favorite. Like, look at
they
this.
literally land on a bunch of bodies. Like the whole floor is just covered in people that are bodies, like spiral bodies. And at this point, they're probably not made of bone. So you're literally falling on a bunch of Stretch Armstrongs, you know?
Telling you, like, just falling in a pile of noodles.
Yeah.
And
And and then what's even worse is that they literally look up, and I had to make this part of the thumbnail. Literally at this point, all those bodies are looking up at this ancient ruins of like a spiral, like underground kingdom or civilization. And just not the story aspect to like, okay, this is something that's like ancient and has been happening from like civilization to civilization whenever it comes back. But just look at how beautiful that shot is and the detail he took to literally take the time to do that. It's just a beautiful art shot.
his black work is so strong in this entire book. And knowing that now, like, they're beyond the veil, and it's like this thing that's so scary is still a being of light. Like, whatever this is,
Yeah.
this image is drawn
Mhm.
almost in negative space to how the rest of the book is, and it it sends chills down my spine because, like, I've seen these things in my books that I grew up around. Not
Yeah.
like this, but just that this it's almost like it makes itself so bright that you become obsessed with it. But like, this is literally what a bug would see before it hit a bug zapper.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
good,
And
and
then,
it's like this
and at
totem
this
is
point,
like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
no, and at this point, she was worried about her parents because she wanted to make sure that her little brother escaped and then found her parents. But yet she found her parents at the bottom of the cave, intertwined with everyone else. And at this
Yep.
point, she's like, I did all I can. I can't keep on fighting anymore. It's either that I accept what's happening to our fate and spend the remaining time I have left with this person that I love, or I just keep on fighting and I have a worser outcome than what's going to happen to me.
I can't like I can't believe that this is how it ended.
Yeah.
Like, because here's the thing, guys. Like, this is the conclusion, and
Hmm.
the thing that you have to accept about this town is it's cursed, and this town is cursed. Everybody who lives in it is already part of that curse. The only reason for the people in this town to do anything different, the only reason that they're fighting is because they're fighting against what's going to happen eventually. So it's like, you can have this. They chose, instead of to continue fighting, they saw the only way to escape already, and it
Yeah.
was
Just
the
like
couple
just like
early.
the couple in the beginning.
Yep, they saw the snakes do it. They saw the snakes escape that way, and this is exactly what they did.
Hmm.
They just they stopped fighting and they became the spiral. And once they did,
Yeah.
they were the
I mean,
they were the last two people in the town, apparently, because once that happened, boom, it was like everything sucked up and everything tightened up, and then it was like as nothing happened. It was like nothing ever happened. Like
Mhm.
the spiral goes back to sleep, only for it to happen all over again. It was the toughest ending that I was completely fine with. Like
Yeah.
of a lot of different mediums that I've read, because when you think about what they've been through, it would be very hard to just exist
Mhm.
and like things like you would never really feel like you succeeded. But like, is this lost chapter, like, the book is over for me at that point. Like, I liked the last chapter. It was interesting,
Yeah,
but
it is like the light in it. Yeah,
yeah,
the dead lights. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like the dead lights. Yeah. Um, it's. I'll let you talk about this last chapter, Ronnie, because it's like I was honestly spent by the time I got to this chapter,
Hmm.
and it's like I get it, but I don't need it. To be honest, it's still. I mean, the
Yeah.
artwork is still beautiful. I
This
just
this chapter is kind of like a bonus chapter, and
sure.
it's called the Lost chapter, and it's called Galaxies. So at this point, like this guy and girl are literally looking into the sky, and they see a galaxy that basically has a spiral to
Yep.
it, and they're like amazed. It's like, oh wow, we found another galaxy. We have to tell our professor at the university. So they basically tell him, and the professor, he's obsessed. He's like, hey, you found another galaxy. I need to get onto this, because in the end, he probably wants to claim it and get a Nobel Prize for it, because, probably that was his
It's a
intention. But
Yeah, he discovered a galaxy.
yeah. So literally throughout the chapter, like I think it's the professor, or like maybe someone else. I can't remember who it was, because I was, like you said, literally spent. And one of the people who are like looking at the galaxy, he's constantly looking at it. And we all know, when you look at the spiral long enough, it's going to make you go mad inside.
Spiral looks at you exactly.
And at one point, like some of the people who looked at the spiral galaxy has gone crazy, because all they hear and feel is
Radio
radio
waves.
waves
Yep.
that would probably be coming from the galaxy. And the radio waves at this point are like literally making people mad, to the point where they're going to go out and kill people.
Yeah.
So it really makes you wonder. It's like, was this like attention shown, like this is a galaxy where, I don't know, it was a like Jason said, it was a chapter that was good, but it wasn't needed to be like in the book, because it just felt like it was like its own thing and not part of the
You
grand
know,
plan in the beginning.
I kind of felt like this chapter was kind of him playing around with what he felt like the spiral obsession was going to look like. And it's like,
Yeah.
you could make it, because this, like, the spiral story itself could have easily been invading aliens. Like, you could have told that story like this way from space, but then it's like he grounded it by making it not only all on Earth, but putting it all in one small town that nobody else could get into, and the people who got to it could never get out of. So,
Yeah.
The artwork in the chapter, as usual, is amazing. Like, this guy's head basically becomes a star, and then it
And
becomes a
explodes.
black. Yeah, and it's all that it's all that Junji Ito level shit. Like that. Look at that. Like, and it does not look like scribbles. Like, this is all by design.
Yeah.
This is all conscious. Like, and so, like, oops. So it does have a little bit of
And I
mean,
actually liked at the end how he actually made a little short story about himself editing the book, and he had a spiral person attack him. And it's like, this time there isn't any kind of punchline. So, he had basically he had fun with this chapter, and it was like basically a little story of itself, probably of like, you know, this is probably another like town that was built on top of the old town that our past people were trying to escape, and just showing you that, hey, it's starting all over again.
Right. He was,
You know?
and it's like this last picture, like it looks like he's burnt out by the spiral. Like, look at him. Like,
Yeah,
it's okay. So
it's just, I'll let you go first.
no. I'm good. I
No,
just want to listen because I
yeah,
can go on forever. So
no, go ahead, go ahead. I
okay,
want to hear what you have to say.
these are
So
my
this is us giving our a view from 1 to 10, what we thought about the artwork, the story, and how scary this book is.
okay.
So go ahead, my friend.
I give it a 10. I give the artwork a 10,000. I give the storytelling a 10 million, a million, and I give like the overall story a 10. It, I'm, it might be in my top three of my favorite stories of any book, comic book, regular book, what have you. Like this, I could have read this with no pictures, and I could have read it with no words, but I'll read it again just like it is. I will go buy this book soon because it's just something that I feel like if you're a fan of it or if you're a student of comics, this is something that you should look at
Mm-hmm.
because it's super minimal, but it's done better than any book. This is my favorite book. No drinking. This is my favorite book. I had coffee, but that's about it. This is just my favorite book. Like it, I could talk about it forever. Like,
Yeah.
and so yes, I really do believe that this is my favorite book because it's just like, what can you do with black and white?
Mm-hmm.
You can make a masterpiece. Like, yeah, you can tell a story. Anybody can tell a story, but you can make a masterpiece with black and white. And this book is a masterpiece for me. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right. So for my review, the artwork gets a 10. For the fact is that he took the time to literally put so much detail in the like design of the shell, the design of the housing, literally making sure that when he wanted to have like a jump scare in the comic, he wanted to make it as gross and as creepy as possible. That, if someone was craving looking at you like, hey, I'm hungry and you're my food, he literally made sure that he had like the starvation eyes and literally the drool coming from the mouth. Amazing just on that, and then the story literally having like 20 chapters and each chapter being great on its own, but literally building up like, building blocks to create a foundation of a house, because this is what it is. It's like, okay, this small town is being destroyed and it's becoming a Uzumaki spiral town. And yeah, it's a beautiful foundation. Just each story, like I said, speaks for itself and could be a standalone, comic, or just a standalone like mini like animated episode. But he
Sure.
took the time to literally make sure that, okay, I'm not gonna make sure that chapter 17 is great and then make sure that 18 sucks just so I could put more effort in 19. He
Right.
literally made sure that each one was great and you wanted to read more. So overall, with the horror factor, I give it a 10
Yep.
because, it is one of those things like it is hard to really like make a comic book give you a jump scare or a comic book to really scare you, but he did his damn finest to make you like have like that horrifying disgust look, like, oh my god, what the heck was that? Please, what's going to happen next? And yeah, it's just, 10 across the board, just like with Jason.
Yep.
Amazing stuff. And I just want to read more of his books if it is going to be this good.
It's 20 chapters. I could have read 20 more chapters. Like if he had a story to tell that was longer, I could have read more. But what I dig about this book is there are so many different things that you can learn how to convey in comics. Mm-hmm. Because like he did a good chase scene. Like you can learn how to do chase. You can learn architecture. His panel breaks are really, really good, and he didn't do a lot of like the sexy, eye-catching panel stuff. Like the panel layout is very minimal as well. But he did a great job not having every scene just be a bunch of bobbing and walking heads. Right. Yeah. Even all the 2 chapters of them walking on a trail, and it never felt mundane. What's going on, man? How's it going?
What's up, Frank? But appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick Beckman. I love your business cards.
Yeah.
But
it's great. And I recommend anyone to pick this book up because you're not going to be disappointed.
There were no filler chapters in this. In 20 chapters, there were no throwaway chapters in this book. Not even really chapter 20. You have to put chapter 20 in a vacuum. Like this is a 19 chapter book. 20 rounded it out, and it was a cool vision inside of a different. It was a cool vision of a different angle that this story could have gone, because this whole story could have been told from this angle, and it's still supernatural, but it's more suspense and like that high psychological tension.
And we're not just saying it for ourselves. Like this comic made a big impact on society, period, that it made a live action movie, and it made an animated series that was aired on Cartoon Network's late night showing for I don't know if it came out already, but the fact is that it literally has an animated series and a live action movie to it as well, because this is a great movie, and it deserves, Ito deserves to be, praised because he did a great job, and it just shows that he put his heart, blood, and sweat in this.
This is like an A++ book. Like,
yeah.
So I've enjoyed like a lot of movies, and like the movies that I really like, I do watch with the commentary, because like it just kind of gives you that creator's point of view. And this book, like I'll go back and read this entire book relatively soon, and I'll read it with a completely different eye. And I want to go back and I want to notice, because the story felt familiar the entire time from the first chapter. I want to know exactly like what did he like carry, like these little things tell you the ending. Like these are your bits. Like these are your breadcrumbs. Like, how many breadcrumbs are there? Because this book is very immersive. I guess that's the best word for it, because you have to get in and you have to digest every chapter. And I tell
you can get lost in the story and the artwork in every chapter, period.
Yeah. I started reading it. I started reading these last few chapters on my phone, and I enjoyed it, but I knew I needed to read them over again on my iPad, because it is something that you need. Like there's so much detail in every page. Like you want to I always zoom in on at least one panel per page and just kind of examine it, because like every line is placed consciously, and it's something to see. Okay, we're getting there. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we're reviewing next, it will be another Ito book, but we'll say which one it is in a little bit. We still got a little bit of time left on the video. We'll save that for the end. But yeah. So now that we've digested the whole book, Ronnie, like, did you have like one favorite part? Not necessarily like a picture, but like, was there one particular part of this story that you enjoyed more than the other?
Oh man, that's a hard decision
That
right
is,
there.
yeah.
Man, like I just like the I don't know how to put it, as like the end of the chapters were great because you saw the outcome, but
Sure.
like the beginning chapters with the father turning into a spiral and the snails and stuff like that, that was really great. Those first few stories is what really like brought like not just me as a reader in, but like any reader is like, okay, these couple chapters are very horrifying. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it's literally turning someone into a spiral, it's turning people into a snail, you know, literally this person is like stabbing out their eardrums with the scissors just because it has gotten into their head.
Right.
And just like looking up in the sky and you literally see faces in the sky from like the clouds that are spirals. So
Right.
yeah, it's just a really, it's one of those things that as a writer you want to make sure that the beginning few chapters of your story, or even if it's just one issue, you want to make sure the beginning of your the pages of your book, you know, really sets the tone and makes the readers want to keep on reading instead of just, you know, jumping ship. Just like
Right.
with the movie, if it doesn't have a great intro and it's boring in the beginning, then they're going to think that it's going to be boring throughout the whole thing.
You have to give me a reason to invest my time. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think I said a couple weeks ago, like, you can start reading this book anywhere. You can start reading this book at any chapter and you will enjoy it wherever you start from. But starting this book from the beginning, like starting this book at chapter 1, it would be hard for me to see anybody putting this book down if they started it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it just like it grabs you and you gotta know what happens next. Like, you gotta know what happens next. But I think that, like I was telling you earlier, like, I think we broke it in the right sections, because this is way too much book for like even a 2 hour review. This book that would not do any service to this book. Like, you gotta read this book, man. Like, I knew after the first 2 chapters that it was going to be my favorite thing that I read. Like,
Yeah.
and I was never let down. And the story is good. This is a writer's comic, but the artwork is strong. But I would love to know how many hours he put into this, because
Oh yeah.
every
A lot of
page is
detail.
like, he worked to make every page his best page. There were no like lazy panels. No lazy panels, man. Like, it's my favorite. I'll say it.
Yeah.
I don't really like, I feel like that's an emotional response, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite story, like for comics for sure, but
Yeah.
up there for
And for right
stories.
now, I could say that it's like the best. It's like the best review of a comic and the comic that we had on the show so far. And this is our 7 episodes in. And not saying that the other books that we review weren't great. They were great. And I recommend people reading those too. But this is just like, if you want a horror comic, and especially a horror comic that introduces you to Japanese culture and how they make and write comics, this is it. This is it right here.
This is damn, I forgot what I was gonna say. Shoot. It's just such a good book, man. Like, it's I just don't know what else to say. This sets the bar for 10s. I guess that's the point that I was trying to make, is like, this is a 10. So I have to remember that for anything else that we review.
Yeah.
This is what a 10 looks like. So I can't fall in love with every book that we review. I don't think that I would anyway, but at the same time, like, this is a 10. And so it would be like, I hope we read more 10s. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I hope we read a lot more of these, because this is it. Like,
this sets the bar.
Yep, 100%. Did we ever find out how old this book is?
I think it was created back in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's see.
Let me see.
Let's see. Uzumaki. Wow. It was released over 1998 and 1999.
Wow,
so
that's
it's aged so well.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea this book was that old.
Yeah, you us just reviewing the book and you picking it up, I guarantee it, you're not going to think that this book is that old. Like,
no,
it's amazing.
This is Beatles. And like, this is Queen. Like, this is like that timeless music that you get that always sounds good. Uzumaki is a good story in whatever time it exists in, and it's for somebody who hasn't read a lot of like straight up horror before we started doing this stuff. This was it was proper to get me talking about horror by reviewing the best. And we didn't even really know it was going to be the best when we started reading it. Like, we just knew it looked cool. And like, I had thumbed through it before, but you ain't gonna read no books like this, y'all. Like, yes, it's as good as we're saying it is. 100%.
So now we're coming up at 57 minutes. You want to tell them what we're going to be reviewing?
All right. So yes, I don't think that this is going to turn into a Junji Ito channel. I don't really care if it does, because I like reading good stories. Yeah. But so the next one, I believe, is a little bit shorter, but we are doing another Junji Ito book, and it's called The Legend of Amagara Fault. It's a really cool story about this town that after an earthquake, it reveals this giant chasm that has people-shaped holes in it. And so just like this story told the story of what the spiral was, this story we will go through and find out what these holes are and what does Junji Ito have to come up with these banana stories. So I think Ronnie, we probably will be able to knock this one all out in a show. Like, we'll be able to do this whole story in a show.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing: even for Junji Ito, the bar is set. I won't say exposed, but if Uzumaki was your best story, I will be honest and subjective. But I like, you got a customer for life out of me. Like, you would pretty much. You at least have my attention from the word go, because like I said, I've looked through this story. I've read it with different eyes, but just flipping through the pages, like, the artwork is very, very strong. It's a different story. It's a totally different story than what we just did, but I'm excited about it. I think it'll be cool, and I think that it's short enough that we can unpack it all in one chapter, but we can still get into it. And if we decide to break it up into 2 chapters, more power to you. But y'all read this story. Like, if you don't want to get in and like listen to us and read along a 20 chapter book, like, try this one. Like, read this one over the week And like, then like you guys have questions about what we thought about certain parts. We have questions, like we can go back and forth. Like me and Ronnie don't see eye to eye on everything, but we know what's good when we see it. So there's really no point in debating what's good. So we'll continue this. Like, this has been fun. Like, I really enjoy talking about good stuff. I enjoy talking about good comments. Like, it's always nice to have Fridays as like the first day of the weekend, and I get to spend time at home with my family. But it's like the first thing I get to cut loose and talk about comics with Ronnie. So like we'll keep doing this as long as we can do it. Who would you say compare? I honestly, it's a completely different style. His writing is different, but there's really, his artwork is not American style at all. So it's like he stands alone as far as not saying like this is the best artist that I've ever seen, but for what he does, I haven't seen a lot of people who do what he does this way. So he's solid, and he's really good. Like, and if he knows what he's good at, it's just these super strong lines. Like I could see myself getting a tattoo in his style, like, because it's super clean, very detailed, by doing not a lot of things a whole lot. It's like there's not a lot of extras, but there's a lot of.
And for people to like, what would you compare it to? I mean, it is hard to compare it, but like, the whole curse on the town, and apparently at the end of the book, you see that it's something that apparently happened, like, every, I guess, I don't know how long, but basically once that town's destroyed, it'll go into dormant and come back again. So it's kind of like you have the Stephen King It aspect on that, but then the curse has different effects on different people. Will literally turn them into spirals, or it turns them into snails. So it kind of has like that John Carpenter's The Thing on it, where people are affected and turned into monsters in different ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, imagine like Derry, Maine with it, but instead of Pennywise attacking people, everybody eventually would turn into Pennywise. It does have a lot. It does have flashes of Stephen King in the writing, particularly with it. It's not like this book was inspired by Stephen King. It's not what I'm saying, but like, like somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Patrick Bateman. Yes, when you see the spiral from its like truest sense, it does remind you a lot of the Deadlights from it. It really does.
Yeah,
but if somebody said, read this book, it's just like it, you would read it and you'd be like, this is not like it at all. Like, there's certain ingredients that are going to exist in good horror, and we don't see them a lot, especially in our genre. From what I've seen, you get people who like honk on one thing, like the gore, or the like the over the top, like upside down cross, like demon. This is something different, but it's scarier than most things that you'll pick up and read. It's scarier than most things that you'll watch, even in a movie. This is just good horror. It's not a good horror comic. It's just good horror, straight up. So,
all right. Well, there you go, guys. If you want to look up the book, go right ahead. So you could review it along with us and give your opinion in the chats of what you think of next week's book. And you know where to find me, because you're on my channel. If you like what you're watching, subscribe. And I'm Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Isle Comics. You could find me on Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. You got my friend Jason Alexander, Frogbreaker Studios, and you can find him on Instagram,
Frogbreaker Studios. Y'all, give me some follows. Like, I've been kind of slack on Instagram, but like I'm ready to do awesome again. So like, y'all come and check it out.
he no lie, and I'm not just saying it as a friend, but he has really great writing, and I really enjoy his artwork. And right
Thank
now
you, Ronnie.
he's working on a cult horror comic, and
Yeah.
just reading the little bits of it, it's great stuff. You know, there's going to be a point where I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna review his book, and he'll sit down and review my 80s horror comic, and just just let people think what we get it from,
There you go.
and
And I'm telling
it'll be
y'all,
great.
I know what a 10 looks like. And I'm coming after a 10. I'm not going to say, well, I know what it looks like, and so I'll never be that good, y'all. Nope. If you're gonna do it, this is what you shoot for. So yes, Junji Ito, I always want you to be great, but I want to be mentioned with your stories. Thank you,
Appreciate that,
Patrick.
Patrick.
Let's
Yep.
go. I
If you
promise you,
need
I'll
the
give y'all
links,
some
are in the
shit, man.
if you need the link, they're in the description for our areas. So yeah.
Yep. So yeah, man, like this has been fun, Ronnie. It don't stop. We're finished with the book. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Like we completed like a 2 graphic novels in a row, because it was like Russ's book was pretty long and we finished that one. This book was even longer, and now we finished it. So it's like now, like, y'all come back. Like, this is what we're doing. This whole story next week, the Enigma of Amagara Fault. Like, you can find it and read it online. We'll probably post a link in our social media, like once we find one that's good and that we can get behind. So like y'all come with us, and if you don't,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk about it anyway, because y'all know it's hard for me to not stop talking, especially when it's good. So
Mhm.
like, I'm all good, Ronnie. You got anything else you need to add?
Nope. I just want to say thank you for everyone in the chats, and just being so positive and talkative, and just like to see you all next week.
Yeah,
So
y'all, like, read some comic books, like have fun with it, and read what you like and make what you like. Damn it!
Mhm.
All right,
All right.
all
Bye
right.
everyone.
Y'all be good.